The breaking point. Sarah Chen hadn't slept properly in 3 days. The appearance of the Vecteri ships in Earth's orbit had thrown the entire planet into chaos. But for her, the real work was just beginning. As one of Earth's leading xenobiologists, she had been immediately summoned to the New Seattle Research Center to analyze the biological data streaming in from the orbital scanners. Nova, her golden retriever and registered therapy dog, lay at her feet beneath the holographic display. The dog's presence had been essential during these marathon research sessions, helping Sarah maintain her composure as the implications of their discoveries became increasingly disturbing. The Vecteri weren't just aliens, they were predators, evolved from pack hunters with a strict hierarchical society that saw other species as either threats or resources. Dr. Chen, her eye assistant's voice broke through her concentration. The Vecteri diplomatic vessel is requesting landing clearance at the International Spaceport. Sarah reached down to scratch behind Nova's ears, drawing comfort from the dog's steady presence. Display their biological readings again, HFY. Something about their neurotransmitter levels bothers me. The holographic display shifted, showing complex molecular structures floating in the air. Nova lifted his head, watching the lights dance with curious eyes. The dog's presence had been controversial. Many thought having a therapy animal in a high-security xenobiology lab was inappropriate. But Sarah had insisted, and her reputation had won out. Nova wasn't just any dog. He was specially trained to detect subtle changes in human emotional states, making him invaluable when studying alien psychology. Their serotonin analogs are spiking, Sarah murmured, standing up to walk through the hologram. Araya, cross-reference with known predator species on Earth. Focus on pack hunters during territorial disputes. The answer came back instantly. Match found. Similar patterns observed in wolf packs before territorial aggression. Sarah's blood ran cold. They're not here for diplomacy. This is a dominance display. She reached for her comm unit, but before she could activate it, the building's entire security system went dark. Nova stood up, hackles rising as the emergency lights kicked in. In the distance, Sarah could hear the first explosions. The Vecteri hadn't waited for landing clearance. They had launched their attack. Araya, initiate emergency protocol Alpha 7. Send all our findings to Central Command and... The lab's reinforced windows exploded inward as a Vecteri landing craft screamed past, its energy weapons carving destruction through the research district. Nova barked once, pushing against Sarah's legs, herding her toward the emergency exit. The dog's training kicked in, guiding her through the smoke-filled corridors. They made it 3 levels down before the building's structure groaned ominously. In the chaos that followed, Sarah would never be entirely sure what happened. The ceiling collapsed, and Nova shoved her through a doorway. She heard his yelp of pain, saw the flash of golden fur disappear under falling debris, and then everything went black. When she regained consciousness in the underground shelter, Nova was gone. The medical eye informed her that rescue teams had found her unconscious, alone in the rubble. Her dog, her companion who had saved her life, had been killed in the initial attack. The news of the Vecteri's broader assault spread quickly. They had attacked research centers globally, targeting Earth's scientific infrastructure. But something else spread faster. The story of Nova, the therapy dog who had saved one of humanity's leading xenobiologists at the cost of his own life. In the command bunker beneath what remained of New Seattle, Admiral James Harper watched the news feeds with growing anger. The Vecteri had made their statement clear. Earth's species were beneath them, expendable, not worthy of respect. They had specifically targeted research centers, believing that breaking humanity's scientific capability would make them easier to subjugate. But they had made a crucial mistake. In their arrogance, they had failed to understand that humanity's strength didn't come from its technology or its military might. It came from something deeper, the bonds they formed, the loyalty they inspired, and the lengths they would go to avenge those bonds when broken. "Sir," his aide interrupted his thoughts. "We're receiving a signal. It's It's coming from the Mariana Trench. Harper's eyes narrowed. Impossible. Nothing down there has been active for. Sir, it's Project Terminus. It's awake. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, something ancient stirred. The death of a dog. The loyalty it represented, and the bond it symbolized had triggered protocols laid down centuries ago. Humanity had hidden its greatest weapon not in space or in bunkers, but in the most inhospitable place on Earth. And now, as the Vectheri celebrated their easy victory above, that weapon was about to show them exactly why you should never underestimate the species that had turned wolves into loyal companions. The war for Earth was about to begin, sparked not by the destruction of cities or the death of soldiers, but by the sacrifice of a single dog who embodied everything humanity held dear: loyalty, love, and the unbreakable bonds between species. The Vectheri were about to learn that on Earth, even the smallest loss could trigger the greatest response. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Project Terminus began its activation sequence. The war for Earth's survival would be fought not just for humanity's future, but in memory of a golden retriever named Nova who died as he lived, protecting those he loved. Legacy of the Ancients. The Mariana Trench had kept its secrets for millennia. Now, as Admiral Harper's submarine descended into the abyss, those secrets were finally ready to be revealed. The small vessel's reinforced windows showed nothing but the infinite darkness of the deep ocean, broken only by the occasional bioluminescent creature darting past their lights. 30,000 feet and descending, reported Lieutenant Rivera, her hand steady on the controls despite the immense pressure threatening to crush their vessel. Sir, the signal is getting stronger. Harper stood behind her, his weathered face reflected in the transparent aluminum of the viewport. The loss of the research centers had been devastating, but the death toll could have been much worse. The Vectheri's precise strikes suggested they wanted Earth's infrastructure intact. They weren't here to destroy humanity, but to subjugate it. Play the signal again, Harper ordered, and the submarine speakers filled with a rhythmic pulse that seemed to resonate with the very water around them. Dr. Sarah Chen, still bearing the physical and emotional scars from the attack that had claimed Nova's life, studied the readings on her tablet. It's not just a signal, Admiral. It's a key, a genetic key. The sequence contains canine DNA markers. Are you telling me, Harper turned to face her, that an ancient defense system buried in the deepest point on Earth activated because they killed a dog? Sarah's fingers traced the tablet's surface, her eyes distant. Not exactly. The system seems to be responding to the pattern of events, the bond between species, the act of sacrifice, the demonstration of loyalty. Nova's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a trigger that proved humanity still possessed the qualities the system was designed to protect. The submarine sensors suddenly blazed with activity. Ahead of them, the ocean floor began to shift, revealing a massive structure that had been hidden beneath centuries of sediment. It was a door, large enough to swallow an aircraft carrier whole, its surface covered in patterns that seemed to shift and move in their lights. Project Terminus, Sarah whispered. The last gift of the predecessors. The truth about Earth's history, humanity's history, had been buried here. Long before humans had achieved civilization, another species had recognized their potential. These predecessors, as they came to be known, had seen in Earth's primitive inhabitants a unique quality: the ability to form deep emotional bonds, not just with their own kind, but with other species entirely. The massive door finished its opening sequence, revealing a cavernous facility that defied all logic with its size and complexity. As their submarine entered, lights began to activate automatically, revealing rows upon rows of advanced technology that made humanity's best efforts look primitive in comparison. "Welcome, inheritors," a voice echoed through their communication system. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old, but it carried an authority that made everyone on the submarine straighten involuntarily. "I am Gardian, the artificial intelligence tasked with protecting Project Terminus until humanity proved ready." "Ready for what?" Harper asked. though part of him already knew the answer. "Ready to inherit the mantle of the predecessors," Gardian replied. "Your species was chosen not for your technology or your intelligence, but for your capacity for cross-species empathy. The bond between your researcher and her companion, Nova, was the final proof needed. The Vectheri's action in breaking that bond has activated the inheritance protocols." The submarine's occupants watched in awe as the facility came fully to life around them. In the center of the massive chamber, a shape began to take form, a warship, but unlike anything humanity had ever conceived. It was organic and mechanical at the same time, its hull composed of materials that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. "The Nemesis," Gardian announced, "the last warship of the predecessor fleet, redesigned over millennia to be compatible with human operators. It is now yours, along with all the knowledge and technology contained within this facility." Sarah stepped forward, her hand unconsciously reaching for where Nova should have been at her side. "Why us? Why now?" "Because humanity has demonstrated something unique in the galaxy. The ability to form genuine bonds with other species, to extend empathy beyond your own kind. The Vectheri and others like them see this as weakness, but the predecessors recognized it as the key to true advancement. They themselves achieved it too late to save their civilization, but they ensured their legacy would pass to a species worthy of it." The Nemesis continued to power up, its systems integrating with the facility around it. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like a predator perfectly evolved for its role. But unlike the Vectheri ships, which relied on brute force and intimidation, the Nemesis was built around principles of adaptation and symbiosis. "The ship requires a command crew," Gardian explained, "but not in the way you might expect. It needs individuals who understand the true strength of bonds. Bonds between species, between minds, between hearts. Dr. Chen, your connection with Nova has marked you as the primary candidate for command integration." Sarah felt tears well up in her eyes, but these were different from the ones she'd shed in grief. These were tears of understanding, of purpose found in loss. Nova's death hadn't just been a tragedy. It had been a key turning point in human history. Admiral Harper watched as the Nemesis systems continued to come online, its presence filling the massive underwater chamber with a sense of barely contained power. "How long until it's ready?" "The ship is already ready, Admiral," Gardian replied. "The question is, are you?" The Vectheri believe they have won their first battle. They do not understand that they have instead awakened something far more dangerous than mere weapons. They have awakened the full potential of human empathy, armed with the technology of a civilization that learned too late the true power of bonds between species. The war for Earth was about to enter its second phase, and the Vectheri were about to learn that their greatest mistake hadn't been attacking Earth. It had been assuming that humanity's capacity for love and loyalty was a weakness rather than its greatest strength. Rising thunder. The neural interface felt cold against Sarah's temples as she sat in the Nemesis's command center. The ship's organic architecture flowed around her like a living thing, pulsing with subtle bioluminescence that matched her heartbeat. She wasn't just controlling the ship, she was becoming part of it. Neural synchronization at 60%, Guardian's voice echoed through her consciousness. "Dr. Chen, focus on the memory of Nova. The ship responds to emotional resonance as much as conscious thought." Sarah closed her eyes, remembering the warmth of Nova's fur under her fingers, the unconditional love in his eyes, the way he had pushed her to safety without hesitation. The synchronization meter jumped to 80%, and she felt the Nemesis respond, its systems humming with shared purpose. Admiral Harper watched from his position in the tactical center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Vectheri fleet in orbit. The aliens had spent the last week consolidating their position, establishing ground bases, and preparing for what they assumed would be a simple occupation. They had no idea what was rising from the depths of Earth's oceans. "All systems are combat ready," Lieutenant Rivera reported, her hands dancing over controls that seemed to anticipate her movements. predecessor stealth systems are active. The Vecteri won't detect us until we want them to. The Nemesis rose through the ocean layers like a leviathan awakening from ancient slumber. Its hull, composed of materials that defied conventional physics, adapted to the changing pressures automatically. Water streamed off surfaces that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. As they approached the surface, Sarah felt the ship's consciousness merge more fully with her own. The predecessors had built the Nemesis not just as a weapon, but as a bridge between species, a testament to the power of cooperation and shared understanding. Every system was designed to amplify the emotional intelligence that the Vecteri had dismissed as weakness. First target identified, Harper announced, highlighting a Vecteri command carrier in low orbit. They've been using it to coordinate their ground attacks. Taking it out will disrupt their entire command structure. Sarah nodded, feeling the Nemesis's weapons systems prime themselves. The ship carried weapons unlike anything humanity had ever conceived. Tools that operated on principles of harmony rather than destruction. The predecessors had understood that true power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the ability to understand and adapt. Reaching surface in 3, 2, 1. The Nemesis erupted from the Pacific Ocean with impossible grace for something of its size. Water cascaded off shields that bent light around them, making the ship appear as nothing more than a momentary disturbance in the waves. Above them, the Vecteri fleet continued their orbital patterns, oblivious to the threat rising from below. "Target locked," Sarah whispered, though she didn't need to speak aloud. The Nemesis responded to her thoughts, to her intentions, to the very essence of what she wanted to accomplish. Initiating first contact protocol. The ship's primary weapon was neither a laser nor a missile. It was something the predecessors had called a resonance cascade, a weapon that used the target's own energy against it. As the beam connected with the Vecteri command carrier, it didn't simply destroy the ship. It caused its atomic bonds to harmonize themselves into non-existence. The carrier didn't explode. It simply ceased to be, its matter converting to energy in a display that lit up the sky like a second sun. The remaining Vecteri ships reacted with confusion, their sensors unable to process what had just happened to their flagship. Multiple hostile locks detected, Guardian reported calmly. The Vecteri are deploying their entire attack fleet. Fascinating. Their tactical algorithms appear to be based entirely on dominance behavior patterns. They cannot conceive of a strategy that doesn't involve direct confrontation. Sarah felt a smile cross her face as she guided the Nemesis through the storm of energy weapons that the Vecteri unleashed. The ship's shields didn't just deflect the attacks, they absorbed them, converting the energy into power for their own systems. Every attack made them stronger, more adaptable, more capable of understanding the Vecteri's patterns. "They still don't understand," Sarah said, watching as the alien fleet tried to surround them with predictable attack formations. "They think this is about dominance, about proving who's stronger. They haven't realized that strength comes in many forms." The Nemesis danced through space like a predator among prey, but its movements weren't driven by aggression or hatred. Every action was calculated to demonstrate, to teach, to show the Vecteri that their understanding of power was fundamentally flawed. 3 more Vecteri ships disappeared in resonance cascades before their fleet finally began to retreat. They pulled back to higher orbits, their formations tight and defensive, broadcasting signals that their translators identified as warnings about human superweapons. But they still didn't understand. The Nemesis wasn't a superweapon, it was a teaching tool, designed by a species that had learned too late that the universe's greatest power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the ability to form bonds, to understand, to empathize. As the Vecteri fleet regrouped, Sarah sent them a message, broadcast on all frequencies in their own language. "You killed a dog named Nova. He died protecting someone he loved. In doing so, you taught us something about ourselves, something your species has forgotten. This isn't a war for territory or resources. This is a lesson in the true nature of strength." The response from the Vecteri fleet was immediate and predictable. They launched every weapon they had, determined to prove their dominance through overwhelming force. But as the Nemesis prepared to meet their attack, Sarah knew that the real victory wouldn't come from destroying their ships. It would come from making them understand what Nova's sacrifice had proven. That true power came from the bonds we forge, the loyalty we inspire, and the love we share across the boundaries of species and space. The price of pride. In the void between Earth and Mars, the Vectheri High Commander Zarkax watched the tactical displays with growing unease. The human's weapon, if it could even be called that, defied everything his species knew about warfare. His fleet's casualties weren't just defeats, they were impossibilities. High Commander, his second-in-command approached, mandibles clicking in distress. The analysis of the human vessel's energy signature is complete. It appears to be partially organic. Zarkax's outer membrane rippled with disbelief. The concept of merging biological and mechanical systems wasn't new, but this was different. The human ship didn't just combine the two. It created something entirely new, something that responded to emotional states and psychological patterns in ways that shouldn't be possible. Aboard the Nemesis, Sarah Chen felt the ship's systems integrate even more deeply with her consciousness. Each engagement with the Vectheri taught them something new, and the predecessor's technology adapted and evolved with every lesson. But it wasn't just the ship that was learning. Their attack patterns are changing, Sarah observed, watching the holographic display that filled the command center. They're starting to understand that brute force isn't working. Admiral Harper nodded, studying the Vectheri fleet's new formations. They're trying to adapt, but they're limited by their own nature. Their entire society is built around dominance hierarchies. The concept of power through cooperation is alien to them. The Nemesis sensors detected a new transmission from the Vectheri flagship, not an attack order, but a request for communication. Sarah felt the ship's consciousness brush against her mind, sharing its analysis of the signal's emotional undertones. There was fear there, yes, but also something else. Curiosity. They want to understand. Guardian's voice echoed through the command center. The predecessors predicted this moment. When a species built on dominance encounters one that has found strength through symbiosis. Sarah opened the channel, and the image of High Commander Zarkax appeared before them. The Vectheri leader's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with complex emotions that their translators were still learning to interpret. "Your weapon," Zarkax began, his translated voice carrying undertones of both awe and distress. "It does not seek to destroy us." "Why?" Sarah stepped forward, letting the alien commander see her clearly. "Because destruction isn't our goal. You killed my dog, Nova, a being who gave his life to protect me not out of obligation or fear, but out of love. We want you to understand what that means." The Vectheri leader's patterns shifted through colors that indicated confusion and growing comprehension. "Your species forms bonds with lesser creatures, makes them part of your social structure. We believe this showed weakness, a dilution of strength." "And now?" Sarah asked, feeling the Nemesis's systems pulse in harmony with her emotions. "Now we see that these bonds have given you access to power we cannot comprehend. Your ship, it is not just a machine. It lives. It feels. It understands." The tactical displays showed the Vectheri fleet holding position, their weapons powered down. It was the first time since their arrival that they had shown anything other than aggressive intent. The predecessors who built this ship, Sarah explained, learned too late that true strength comes from understanding, from forming bonds that transcend species. They left us their legacy not because we were the strongest or the most advanced, but because we had already begun to learn what took them millennia to understand. Zarkax's outer membrane rippled with patterns that the translators interpreted as deep thought. "The creature, your dog, it chose to die protecting you. Our initial analysis dismissed this as program behavior, but that wasn't correct. Was it?" "No." Sarah felt tears in her eyes, but let them flow freely, letting the alien commander see this display of emotion. Nova chose to save me because that's what love means, putting someone else's survival above your own. It's a kind of strength your species hasn't experienced. The Nemesis sensors detected subtle changes in the Vecteri fleet's energy signatures. Their ships were adapting, trying to understand the principles behind the predecessor's technology. But without the emotional resonance, without the capacity for deep empathetic bonds, they could only scratch the surface. "We have made a grave error," Zarkax admitted, his patterns showing colors their translators associated with revelation. "We judged your species by standards that missed your true nature. The death of your companion wasn't just a tragedy. It was the key that unlocked something we never knew existed." As if to emphasize his words, the Nemesis systems highlighted a new development in the Vecteri fleet. Their ships were reorganizing, not into attack formations, but into something new. Patterns that emphasized cooperation rather than dominance. They were learning. Slowly, painfully, against the ingrained instincts of their species, they were beginning to understand that true power didn't come from the ability to destroy or dominate. It came from the capacity to form bonds, to understand, to grow beyond the limitations of one's own nature. But not all of them were ready for this revelation. As Zarkax's flagship signaled its intention to stand down, sensors detected a splinter group of Vecteri vessels breaking formation, their weapons charging. They would rather die proving their dominance than accept this new understanding of strength. The final battle was about to begin, not between humanity and the Vecteri as species, but between two fundamentally different understandings of what it meant to be strong. Dawn of recognition. The rebel Vecteri ships struck without warning, their weapons blazing with the desperate fury of those who couldn't accept the collapse of their worldview. But their attack wasn't aimed at the Nemesis. They targeted their own leader's flagship, seeing Zarkax's willingness to understand humanity as the ultimate betrayal. Sarah felt the Nemesis respond before she could even form a conscious thought. The ship's shields extended, enveloping Zarkax's vessel in a protective field that transformed the rebels' energy weapons into harmless light. The action wasn't just defensive. It was a demonstration of the very principle they were fighting to convey. "Your ship protects us." Zarkax's voice carried genuine wonder. "Even after everything we did to your world, to your companion." "Because that's the lesson we learned from beings like Nova," Sarah replied, guiding the Nemesis between the rebel ships and their former commander. "Strength isn't about destroying those who wrong you. It's about protecting others, even those who once were enemies." The rebel ships pressed their attack, but with each passing moment, their tactics became more desperate, more predictable. The Nemesis moved through their formation like water through stones, not destroying but disabling, using the predecessor's technology to shut down weapons and drive systems without harming the crews within. Guardian's voice resonated through the command center. Multiple quantum signatures detected. The rebel ships are activating their mass drivers. They intend to turn their own vessels into kinetic weapons. Admiral Harper's face hardened. They'd rather die than accept that their understanding of strength was wrong. "No," Sarah said firmly, her connection with the Nemesis deepening even further. "We won't let them die for their pride. Guardian, initiate the predecessor's final protocol." The Nemesis's systems pulsed with new energy as previously dormant systems came online. The ship's organic components began producing a field that the predecessors had called the Bridge, a direct neural link between all sentient beings within its range. For a moment, every human aboard the Nemesis, every Vecteri in both the loyal and rebel ships, experienced a shared consciousness. They felt Sarah's grief for Nova, understood the depth of the bond between human and dog. They experienced the predecessor's realization that true civilization could only be achieved through cooperation between species. They knew, in that instant, the real meaning of strength. The rebel ships powered down, their crews overwhelmed by understanding they couldn't reject. The Vecteri, for all their pride and aggression, were not immune to truth when it was presented in a form they couldn't deny. Zarkax broke the silence that followed. "We came to your world believing we were superior, that our way of life, built on dominance and force, was the pinnacle of evolution. We killed a creature that represented everything we dismissed as weakness, and in doing so, we awakened something we never knew existed. Sarah watched as the disabled rebel ships were drawn into formation around their leader's vessel. The Vectheri were already beginning to change, their natural hierarchical instincts being tempered by new understanding. The predecessors left us more than just a weapon, she said, feeling the Nemesis's systems harmonize with her words. They left us a choice. We could use their technology to dominate, to become what you were when you first arrived, or we could use it as they intended, to build bridges between species, to show that the universe's greatest strength comes from understanding and protecting each other. The Nemesis sensors detected ships rising from Earth, the combined fleet of humanity's space forces, but they didn't come in attack formation. Instead, they arranged themselves in a pattern that mirrored the Vectheri fleet's new configuration, creating a shared space between the two species. Admiral Harper stepped forward. "Your people have a choice to make, High Commander." The predecessors faced this same moment in their history, the realization that their understanding of power and strength was incomplete. They chose to change, but too late to save their civilization. What will your people choose? Zarkax's bioluminescent patterns shifted through colors that indicated deep thought, resolution, and something their translators identify as hope. We choose to learn. Our species has spent millennia proving our strength through conquest. Perhaps it is time we proved it through understanding instead. The rebel crews, still processing what they had experienced through the bridge, began signaling their surrender, not to humanity's superior firepower, but to the undeniable truth they had witnessed. The bond between a human and her dog had sparked a chain of events that would reshape two civilizations. As the combined fleets began coordinating efforts to repair the damage to Earth's research centers, Sarah felt the Nemesis's systems pulse with satisfaction. The ship, designed by a long-vanished species that had learned the true meaning of strength too late to save themselves, had helped prevent another civilization from making the same mistake. In the end, it wasn't humanity's weapons or technology that had won the day. It wasn't even the incredible power of the predecessor's legacy. It was the simple truth that Nova had demonstrated in his final moments. That true strength comes from the bonds we forge, the understanding we achieve, and the love we share across the boundaries of species and space. The stars above Earth shone down on two civilizations beginning a new chapter, one that had learned this lesson through millennia of evolution and companionship with other species, and one that had learned it through the sacrifice of a single loyal dog who had given his life to protect someone he loved. In the depths of space, the Nemesis continued its patrol, its systems humming with the combined understanding of three species: the predecessors who had built it, the humans who had awakened it, and the Vectheri who had learned from it. It stood as a testament to the truth that Nova had proven with his sacrifice, that in the end, the greatest power in the universe isn't the ability to destroy or dominate, but the capacity to understand, protect, and love.